Cancel culture is disgusting.
This cancel culture, please don't drive Jenna off the internet. Like, she is the queen of YouTube, okay? She was one of the pioneers.
No one is perfectly woke. Hi beautiful people. So today we're talking cancel culture. But before we do, thank you to all my patrons. I appreciate your support so much. And again, Thinks Underwear is incredible for all period having people. Use my offer code below to up your period game. So basically, at the beginning of this powerful, beautiful wave of Black Lives Matter, I had a handful of white women slide into my DMs basically bullying and shaming me. I was tagged on shame posts, like posts that were meant to call out influencers that weren't doing enough or weren't doing Black Lives Matter in the right way. And for the first time in my YouTube career, it got incredibly loud to the point that I could barely hear myself. And I started feeling not mobilized and inspired, but paralyzed and afraid. Shame has been an Achilles heel for me my whole life. So I immediately went to that emotion. I was thinking, oh my gosh, am I doing the wrong thing? And then I swung back to anger, thinking, how dare people call me out? They don't know what I'm doing in my private life. They don't know the conversations I'm having. So a lot of time was spent navigating those DMs and trying to sort out what was shame and what was conviction, what I should keep and really process, and which ones I needed to completely reject, turn off, and say, no, I'm not receiving that fear, I'm not receiving that shame. So now we're talking about cancel culture. I'm sure a lot of you know that Jenna Marbles basically canceled herself off of YouTube.
So I think I'm just gonna move on from this channel for now.
The fascinating thing, which I will tell you from my experience did not surprise me, was that I found video after video response from Black men and women devastated that Jenna was bullied into leaving YouTube.
Jenna Marbles is probably one of the most unproblematic people on YouTube.
Stop apologizing.
I said that already, man.
Just stop, because when you apologize, you send out the message to the world that you were inherently wrong and they were right. And unless you did something that was egregiously wrong, do not apologize, because now you're setting new standards and you're emboldening those people.
Those videos were light videos. I used to watch them all the time. They're hilarious.
It is a small pool, I will say that, but from my experience and from watching these other Black YouTubers' videos, I'm just going to guess that the vast majority of shame and bullying came not from Black people, not from people of color, but from other white people, which to me would be ironic if it is true, because we as white people were specifically told to not dictate the way Black people feel about things, not make assumptions about how they feel about things, and not center ourselves in this narrative.
The internet is self-righteous.
I expressed my devastation over George Floyd, and a white girl told me, we don't need your white tears.
It was way harsh, Ty.
I reposted a bunch of Black Lives Matter information. It was my partner's birthday. I made him a cake. I posted a picture of frosting, and I got ripped a new one by a white girl. I made my first Elijah McClain video, and a white girl wrote me to say I was centering myself in that narrative and I came off as selfish. I also learned a whole new vocabulary: white tears, virtue signaling, formative allyship, and the notion of words being violent. There's a lot to unpack here. Some things I agree with, some things I disagree with. So let's dive in. First, let's talk about the importance of not canceling each other and never using shame as a tool. Since day one on God is Gray, I've been talking about how shame is awful, terrible, not of God, and nobody needs it.
I hate that this is what the world has come to, that, you know, we can take our time to create something and then like end up being shamed into not being proud of it anymore.
How do you get to the point where you feel like this? What did you read? Who did you believe to like have as much guilt and shame?
I think she has just seen so much that she's having a hard time dealing with it.
Conviction, calling someone out, yes. Shame, No. And here's the difference. Take Jenna Marbles. This woman has 20 million subs, and it's because she's been spreading love and laughter for over a decade. People love her and she loves them. Even in her self-cancel video, she talks about her devotion to growth. So I'm not the one to assume that her Nicki Minaj impression or other distasteful jokes didn't hurt anyone. But from the Black YouTubers I mentioned, the overarching message was Jenna is a good person, but the world needs people who make mistakes, large and small, humble themselves, grow, and change.
I still look up to her because she's what we want from non-POC influencers, or even, you know, influencers in general. Like, own up to your mistakes and learn from them and show that you've learned from them.
To me, that is literally the purpose of life, to grow and change and to love each other and to accept earnest apologies. So in this case, what drove Jenna Marbles away? Not conviction, but shame. As a Christian, I've recognized the difference in how I feel. Shame arrives when someone tells you that you're something that you're not, like you're gay and therefore your love is evil, or you've made an honest mistake and people tell you it's because you're rotten to your core. Shame brings a sense of hopelessness, which I could see in Jenna's countenance. It's like, I'm a horrible person and I can't remedy this. Conviction, however, is a call to do better. When conviction arrives, whether it's internal or received from a friend, a family member, your lover, it feels like truth. Even if at first you get offended or outright deny it, your spirit sinks. You know you did wrong and you know you can do better. I hate cancel culture, but on the flip side, yes, there are call-outs. This channel is very much so about call-outs. I called out Ali B. Stuckey last week on racism. Hannah from The Bachelorette got called out for singing a slur in a song.
I felt so shame, like just so much shame on me. I did not want to continue repeating this long history of white people not taking accountability and responsibility for their actions.
And I got called out for posting cake frosting. To me, these call outs were all important and necessary. For my frosting post, seems arbitrary, but it was not. The reason being, after all these years of watching Black men and women being murdered by police with no justice, that frosting post was me being hopeless, me moving on, and that wasn't right, because much like Me Too, this time, this Black Lives Matter movement is a paradigm shift. I feel it, and I certainly hope you feel it too. From there, though, I still had to wade through these shame DMs and figure out truth from fiction. My best friend Haven called me one morning. She's a Southern girl, and she was like, Brenda, you better put up that black square. And I was like, but I don't even know what it means. I need to research it. And she was like, I see everybody posting it. You need to post it. She was worried that I was going to get attacked for not posting it. So I posted it. I didn't know if I believed in it. I didn't know what it was about. And sure enough, in response, I ironically got more messages than ever from Black women, kindly, lovingly calling me out and saying this was not the right move and explaining why. I never post hastily. I never post without thought. And it is my responsibility. I reacted out of that shame and bullying that I received, but I wasn't navigating from my truth. I'd ask all of you, when you already respect someone online or you respect someone in real life, take the totality of their character.
People are not just black and white. They're not just all good or all bad, all positive and all negative.
Cancel culture is toxic. It, by the way, if you're a Christian, is anti-Christian. We're not supposed to be canceling each other. We're supposed to have grace for one another and to allow people to be on a journey. You don't have to exercise weakness because of that truth that people can change, but it is something to consider in how you're behaving. You are responsible for that, for how you make people feel. I'm just going to promise you all right now that shame and bullying does not affect true change inside of a person. Maybe bullying will be the catalyst to make someone realize that they need to change, but shame is a negative thing. That person is still going to have to wade through that shame, wade through that bullying to get to the heart of the message that you are trying to impart, which is probably just do better, be better. But I promise you, there is a more kind, loving, and effective way to inspire that change in a person. But also, let's take an extreme example. There's a man named Dave Young. He is the DA that covered up Elijah McClain's murder. He has done some truly vile, evil things. I am advocating for his resignation or his firing, but the fact that Dave Young has maintained his pride while someone like Jenna Marbles has probably cried herself to sleep from the looks of it, to me just goes to show that our energy is not being placed in the right direction in this moment of justice seeking. But for anyone who's thrown shame or been thrown shame, and if you're a human being, I bet you've experienced both, I want you to watch this interview with Jamila Jamil and watch her reject shame in real time.
You have said of Beyonce that she has sexualized herself to sell her records.
Right, but you're bringing up something I said like 10 years ago that I've repeatedly apologized for and explained, and it's my pinned tweet.
All right, okay, but you have said similar things about the over-sexualization of Rihanna, for instance. Same time,
yeah.
So you don't,
No.
You withdraw all those
No,
comments?
I've publicly withdrawn them maybe 100 times. I was a victim, a multiple victim who didn't know where to project my anger, and so I used to take aim. I'm going to just finish, sorry. I used to take aim at the wrong target, which was women.
The last thing I'll say is that rejecting shame is not the same as rejecting conviction. Jamila, for example, clearly felt conviction for the way she spoke about women in the past, but when she course corrected and then was called out again, she rejected that invitation to shame. Rejecting shame for me meant that I honestly ignored the majority of those messages and instead defer to solely Black voices and the voices of friends and confidants that I truly trusted. I also thought about the times I wore Native American headdresses to parties. I had to think about the times that I've written Black people as having chocolate skin and really ask myself why I'd never before pressed into Black history, learning about that, realizing where my family ties and my ancestry actually fall into that story. That is what conviction does for a person. I rejected shame, I accepted conviction. Jamila Jamil puts it like this.
I call myself a feminist in progress because I consider myself never fully formed, and I think that that helps me know that I always have more to do, more to learn, and I can always be and do better.
Take the time to hear someone's story and invite them to change through compassion and listening and conversation. You have to humble yourself and make sure you're listening too. It may be helpful for you to check out this conversation that I had with my dad for the God is Great podcast. He has a story, an experience, and a history that really inform the opinions that he holds today. But in this conversation, I didn't shame him for anything, or vice versa. We took the time to understand each other and to challenge ideas. That to me is the best we can do for each other in our personal lives, online, so that we can affect real change in this world. Because shame is paralyzing, but conviction is mobilizing. Let's move forth in that power and love. And that's it. I love you guys so much. Please like, subscribe, share with your friends, donate to my Patreon or Venmo if you can. Please continue following the Justice for Elijah McClain case. I love you all so much. God bless.